All right. This is setting up and going really slow because Zoom is horrible. All right. We are live. I am dropping this link in here. And so, guys, we are here for NFL Week 2 of the DFS Power Hour. We had some technical difficulties, as usually occur when Scott Barrett is involved. And so Scott is here to join us for the DFS Power Hour for Week 2. And I think he also has the audio on in the background, so we're hearing ourselves multiple times. Scott, dude, what's up?
I don't think so. I have my headphones in, but yeah, what a terrible introduction. Yeah, this is the return everyone's been waiting for. The original founder of the Power Hour podcast is back. 2019, baby.
Yeah, man. How you feeling to be back? It's been a while.
It feels damp. It feels moist.
I don't even know what that means. Hodge, dude, what's up?
I don't know. I'm starting to get moist, so ready for week 2.
Well, all right. So let's just move this along, go game by game. Let's try and keep this rolling since we got a 20-minute late start. The first game that we have is Arizona at Baltimore. And this is a game that I think Lamar Jackson might be popular, but I am not quite sure if he will be or not. Either of you guys have a read on how popular he's going to be?
I kind of feel the same way. I assume he's going to be chalk, but he's also like a top 3 value on both sites at the quarterback position. So I kind of like him anyway. Just the way I've been. I mean, I'm not going to have a lot of exposure to him. I think he's going to be a bubble guy, but my bubble guys go fucking off every single week, way more than my lock button guys. So get him into your lineups.
Hodge, man, what are you thinking?
Yeah, I think from a percentage owned standpoint, he'll probably come in right around the second or third highest. I do just think once you start getting up to near his salary at $6,700. I mean, I think this was something that people made a mistake last week with, and I'm not saying that these two are the same players at all, but once you start getting up to a salary that high, shouldn't you just really start trying to consider playing Patrick Mahomes? And I think people did that with Jameis last week. And I'm not saying Lamar and Jameis are the same thing. I'm just saying if you're going to get up at that salary point, so if you're not targeting somebody who's closer to $5,300 or $5,500, you really start to get up there. I just feel like it starts. You should start having the conversation with yourself at least about getting exposure to Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, I think I have a hard time playing Lamar after running pretty much as hot as he possibly could last week. Mm-hmm. I know there's a player in this game though that I'll let Scott talk about that I was one of my darlings last year, and I think he's a good play again this week. We've targeted the Ravens in the slot for 2 years running, and this offense runs out of the slot. So, Scott, I'll let you go on old man Larry Fitz.
Right. So I did just want to say I really do think Lamar Jackson's a phenomenal play. You said he ran hot, but that was all as a passer and did nothing as a runner, which is why, we love him so much. So he still has that weapon in his bag. And this is a game that should be the most fast-paced, most plays in this game. I don't know. Lots of scoring potential. Like I said, I think he's a top 3 value. Larry Fitzgerald. So yeah, he was a great value last week. Then he dominated against the Lions, and now he's cheaper on both sites. He's just like the 41st most expensive wide receiver on FanDuel, which is dumb. He's like almost equally as cheap on DraftKings. Last week, he ranked 6th among wide receivers in expected fantasy points, 9th in actual fantasy points. Baltimore's defense has given up 30.4% of their receiving fantasy points allowed to slot wide receivers. That ranks 4th most. What does that mean? It just means they're a slot funnel defense. You target them with slot wide receivers. Here's the thing, though. Larry Fitzgerald is going to run 93% of his routes from the slot. So is Christian Kirk, who's also a fine play. Saw really good volume last week, amazing volume in the preseason, just not very efficient. I don't know, Johnny, do you think Christian Kirk sucks? What's going on there?
I think this is sort of like a, new offense, new role, and he's a young player. I think that the learning curve is probably more difficult for someone like him than it is for someone like Fitzgerald.
So that's what I said last year. I said, he was playing out of position. He wasn't in the slot, which is where he played in college. That's why he sucks. That's why I fade him every week. Now he's back in the slot. But
right, that's sort of what I mean. Like he learned something new last year, and then like he's back to making another switch. It's one of those like when players are new offenses every other year.
Yeah,
right.
Scott had a good point about Christian Kirk not being efficient with his targets. And if you go back and you look at some of the latter half of the stuff last year, you can kind of see where he does start to pick up the offense and then slowly starts to tail off, and he's not efficient again. And I think we saw that. I mean, to get peppered with 11, 12 targets and for Larry Fitzgerald to see almost the exact same amount of targets. I think if people are going to play Kirk, then Fitzgerald's such an easy pivot. And I think that makes sense both in both formats.
He looked great too, by the way.
Who, Fitz?
Yeah.
Yep. What some phrase about something never dying. That's what Fitzgerald is.
He's immortal. Real quick, Christian Kirk, this preseason and this regular season with Kyler Murray under center, he's seen 19 targets. Want to guess how many yards he has?
Oh yeah,
27.
44.
Yeah, it's bad.
That's 2.3 yards per target. That's
you don't happen to have his catch percentage up, do you? Because it hasn't been very good either.
Yeah, he's caught 7 of 19. So
yeah.
And with like 0 air yards in preseason at least, but yeah.
Right.
Yep. Yeah, and Ravens looks like Jimmy Smith should be out. So that will mean that Brandon Carr will be on the outside. So you're gonna have even weaker slot coverage from the Ravens likely this week. So that's really it for me from this game. I think it's like Lamar, Mark Ingram, Larry Fitz. I'm not going back to Mark Andrews, who played like half the snaps when we have such other good tight end plays.
So I think you're reading too much into half the snaps thing. He played on like 69% of – he ran a route on 69% of Lamar Jackson's dropbacks, which is like legit really good. It's like blowing O.J. Howard out of the water.
Right, but that's like to say he's a better play than O.J. Howard. Is he a better play than T.J. Hawkinson, Darren Waller, Evan Ingram?
He's number 3, and he's not going to draw a lot of ownership. And we've seen him.
He definitely is.
We know he's a slate buster. Well, what about Hollywood Brown? I think he's going to go low owned. No?
Yeah, no one's going to play him. Everyone knows that he only ran like 8 routes.
Yeah.
Right, but he's fucking amazing. He should see more work this week, and he could just destroy a slate any week.
I think you're asking for a lot for that.
I was.
He's also hurt.
He's not hurt. He's exactly what he was.
No. He's questionable. He didn't practice today.
Wasn't that the same thing last week?
No, he's newly on the injury report.
Really?
Yes.
All right. Well. All right. Terry McLaurin then.
Yeah, we'll talk about him. But also, the thing about Andrews is that he did some of his damage with Robert Griffin as well. I don't know.
I mean, he had one catch with Robert Griffin. It was the touchdown catch, but yeah.
Yeah, I'd rather play the guys that are more like full time in the offense. The Ravens are using 3 tight ends, and that's going to continue.
Right.
Anyways, let's move on to the next game. San Francisco, Cincinnati. I'm really just not interested in San Francisco guys right now. Jimmy Garoppolo looks like garbage. I do think there's some interesting plays on the Cincinnati side, and I like the Cincinnati defense, especially on FanDuel. Where are you guys at on this one?
I think John Ross is intriguing as the new quote-unquote Brandon Cooks in this offense. Probably not going to have really any exposure. Tyler Boyd is a really good value on one of the sites. Tyler Eifert ran a sneaky amount of routes, but I'm not going to play him. I am going to play Giovanni Bernard on FanDuel, where he's a phenomenal value as a bell cow who she should see about 80% of the snaps with good passing down work.
I can so tell that you slept today because Joe Mixon practiced today and they think he's going to play.
Yeah. Damn it. I just woke up like 30 minutes ago. Missed any news that came out today. I was just on RotoWorld and they're terrible this year. So, all right. So Joe Mixon's playing, huh?
Yeah,
it sounds like it.
Looks like. I wouldn't be surprised if we see true game time decision.
Would you
at 11:20 or whatever? Would
you play Joe Mixon as a contrarian play though? Because in the first half in week 1, he played on like 97% of the snaps.
Yeah.
So no one's gonna play him.
No, you're right, and that's one of those things where like I don't know. Much like week 2, there's so many viable cheap plays. Like I'm not sure we need to make such a tough choice with Joe Mixon at $6,200 on DraftKings.
Right.
I think like in tournaments to play Cincy D and Mixon, you could do that, but he's definitely not a guy I would be like really confident in.
You better be playing 150 though. There's no way that you can convince me to have 3 lineups in the power sweep and have one of them with Mixon and Cincy D. I think that's negative EV. It's a million times over.
Yeah. Especially if they blow them out. Like if you play that Cincy D, like Joe Mixon stack, hoping for a blowout, and then it's just like Gio in the second half. I don't know. Scott, you on Eifert? Or not Eifert, Tyler Boyd?
He's cheap on one of the sites. He's another like bubble play I probably wouldn't have too much exposure to, but I mean he fits into some lineups. He'll draw low ownership.
Yeah, I believe he's cheaper than Ross on FanDuel.
Wow. Yeah, I think that's what it was.
Yeah.
He saw a good market share of targets and was relatively efficient with them, right? It was his yardage didn't add up. So I would have to go check and see exactly what his ADOT was. But I think he saw, 11, 12 targets in that game, but he still underperformed from a yardage standpoint.
Since I think Seattle rolled a bunch of coverage to him.
Yeah. And I just don't think that will, I don't know actually with San Francisco. But I just think on a guy who's going to see 11 targets at $6,500, those are typically the ones that you want to pay. Like $6,500 is such a good price point to pay for 10, 11 targets.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's kind of about it. Like I think I do have some interest in Dalton. Like I think you could do a Dalton Boyd Ross, but not something I'm like in love with.
Yeah, I don't think the pace of play sets up super well for this game either. I just think there's some other games that we might see closer to 130 plays rather than this one maybe coming in closer to 115, 120.
Yeah.
And both implied team totals, like there's just not a lot of sexiness. I thought early on in the week Matt Breida was going to be chalk. I don't think it's going that way anymore. Which is probably right. And I think that's a backfield that you don't really want to mess around with, especially with Raheem Mostert in there, or as people are saying, must start.
Yeah. Scott, is it a must start week?
Is it the preseason?
Thank you.
Preseason 2018. I will also say that George Kittle had 17 fantasy points called back due to penalty. And he's fucking awesome and no one's going to play him. He's my number 3 tight end on FanDuel, which means like I'm not going to have any exposure, but he's another bubble play I like that's going to go off.
What do you have him behind, like Waller and somebody else because Waller is such a value, or how does he get?
So I'm like nearly all in on Waller on DraftKings with some Hawk, and then FanDuel I'm paying up to Ingram, then Kelsey, then Kittle.
Yeah, I do think that the Kittle-Kelsey debate is going to be a constant conversation all year. I do think that is clear. Look, on a 1 week sample size, and then obviously what we know from last year, because I kind of going into 2019, I really had Kelsey kind of in his own tier, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think that was pretty clear. But if Kittle's going to see that kind of volume, and especially continue to see red zone work with Garoppolo under center, it's really going to be Kittle, Kelsey, and then depending on Ingram's salary too, man, Ingram could be a lock every single week.
Yeah, it's crazy that they didn't adjust him more.
Mm-hmm. Oh, by the way, I think the winning Millie Maker lineup has a tight end in the flex.
Oh, I don't.
Really? You don't?
Yeah. I think it would be the first time.
Really?
Yeah, I think
there's such good tight end value though. Hawk is too cheap by at least 1,000. Waller's too cheap by like 2,000.
How many times have we had this conversation though, and then it's still not right?
Yeah, exactly.
For what it's worth, from an ownership standpoint, Kittle comes in the lowest owned out of any of the guys that we've just talked about, hands down. Like
it's
questions asked.
It's just hard for a tight end. Like Deshaun Jackson was 4K last week, and he put up 35 fantasy points.
Yeah.
It's hard for a tight end to do that. That's just sort of the nature of it. But yeah, so the Chargers at the Lions, these are two very slow teams. Not very excited about this game outside of Keenan Allen, Eckler, and Hawkinson. Otherwise, don't really want anyone in this game. Is there anybody that I'm missing that you guys are higher on, or anyone that you really want to talk about in this game? I know, Scott, you want to talk about Hawk.
Yeah, so what do we think is going to happen? I think Casey Hayward shadows Kenny Galladay, which means Danny Amendola gets Desmond King, who is PFF's highest graded cornerback over the past 2 seasons, which means Marvin Jones is vaguely in play, which means TJ Hawkinson is the number 2 value on DraftKings. He just saw the most air yards of any tight end since 2017. He just totaled the most yards of any tight end in week 1 and the most yards of any debuting tight end ever. I think he's real. I think he's something you have to buy into. I think he's $1,000 too cheap on DraftKings. And then
here's my question. Here's my question on Hawk. They played an overtime game against one of the fastest paced teams in the league.
Yeah.
He drew 9 targets.
Yeah.
That's probably like one of his target ceilings for this year.
But so in terms of pace, I totally get that. But at the same time, he was fucking awesome. He ran a route on 71% of Stafford's dropbacks. He was Stafford's favorite and most productive receiver in preseason. Second favorite, most productive receiver in week 1. No Derwin James, just a smash setup in terms of cornerback matchups. He's just mispriced by $1,000. It's just that. Like, I'm not playing him. If I'm only making one lineup, I'm playing Waller. But I mean, he's the number 2 value, and he's a smash value.
I just wanted to push you on it.
Right.
And I think to tie a bow on that too, Johnny, the biggest thing there is the routes ran per dropback.
Right. So he ran a lot. I want to see what Andrews was. Did I have it? No, I don't have it.
Andrews only ran 18 routes.
Right, I know, but Lamar only dropped back, not too many times. And then I think he did get pulled at some point with RG3, or RG3 just had 3 dropbacks.
Yeah, no, I just mean in the sense that, like, Lamar Jackson's not going to throw the ball 35 times in a game ever.
Right.
Stafford could.
Can we talk about, are we ready to move to the other side of the ball yet? Are we done with
Yeah.
Detroit?
Yeah, let's do that.
Can we talk about Eckler being one of the highest owned running backs on this slate, most likely, and a guy who literally touched the ball or rushed the ball, 12 times, 13 times? I think it was. Yeah, let me pull up his game log.
God, I wanted to fade him so bad, and then Henry died, and then Mike Williams died.
Yeah, it's but Justin Jackson is not a thing. Like, I don't understand. $6,100, and maybe I'm projecting here, Scott, but you definitely have a thing about true bell cow backs, and I think you've said things about Eckler not being that. So I don't know. Maybe let me hear your take on Eckler.
So I think
still a fade.
I think he's much closer to a lock button play on DraftKings than a fade, and I would quantify his workload as a bell cow workload. Played on 73% of the snaps, 12 of 18 carries, 6 of the team's 9 targets out of the backfield, all of the red zone work. His volume was phenomenal because targets are so much more valuable than carries. He ranked 4th among all running backs in expected fantasy points, 2nd in actual fantasy points. More importantly, he saw 28% of the team's total expected fantasy points. That ranked 4th most among running backs. Now no Hunter Henry, no Mike Williams. And Eckler was phenomenal last year by every measure, better than Melvin Gordon. He should be a mid-range RB1, I think, in a game like your point about carries. He still saw 12 of 18, the majority of the work, but he is more valuable in negative game script. But this is a close game. It's they're only favored by 2.5 points. I think he should be priced as a mid-range RB1. He's priced as a high-end borderline, a high-end RB2, borderline RB1 on DraftKings. So I love him, Johnny. It didn't sound like you loved him either.
No, I do like him. So the one thing that I was looking at earlier today was Melvin Gordon's touches from last year. Mm-hmm. He didn't have a single game with 20 rushing attempts. Mm-hmm. Eckler is basically playing the Melvin Gordon role.
That's fair.
Like 70% of the snaps, but he's getting the most valuable touches. He gets the red zone touches, the targets, the goal line carries.
Okay.
And how much should Melvin Gordon be priced this week if this was 2018?
78, something like that, right?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. No, that's right. I was just thinking like, well, what if Melvin Gordon was $6,500? You're right. I'm probably playing him. And I remember one week, last year, the year before, where he was $6,500. So I guess he is mispriced.
I wanted to fade him, and then they just lost all their players.
It's the Mike Williams and the Hunter Henry thing. I think is definitely helps out his case. But I'm going to set the over under on total plays in this game to 101. What are you guys betting, under or over?
I have no idea, but I looked and I had it as one of the slowest paced games too.
Yeah. So I feel, I don't know. He's mispriced. He's going to be, this is one of those things where is he just like, put yourself in a 3 max or a single entry. Do you want to play him and hold hands with the rest of the field and just kind of go side by side? Especially if he only has like a 22-point game, or an 18-point game. I just don't know what he's doing for you. I guess at $6,100, that's more than fine.
To be fair, he did get overtime last week, so
and he found the end zone twice, 3 times. I don't know what it was.
The one touchdown was in overtime. He had 3 touchdowns. So if he doesn't have the touchdown in overtime, he scores 30 DraftKings points. He's not quite as popular. He's still a good play, but he's not getting 40 DK points.
He is mispriced. I think it is simple as that, though.
Yeah, and I think the pivot is Keenan Allen.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a concentrated offense. It's just going to be Allen and Eckler.
So that's what happened last week. They made up 62% of their team's expected fantasy points, just those 2 players. I think it was most of any team, even above the Giants. Keenan Allen's going to run some of it, like the majority of his outside routes against Darius Slay. That's not a big concern. But I mean, like, what do you do if you're the Lions? Don't you bracket Keenan Allen and like try and let them beat you with Austin Eckler?
Probably not. It's Matt Patricia.
All right, fair. Well, then what about this? What about Travis Benjamin? He shouldn't be minimum priced.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I almost forgot about him.
And so that's actually, I think, the pivot is Travis Benjamin as a one-off, the only piece from this game. So you're game stacking somewhere else. I think Benjamin is the cheap pivot because I think Keenan Allen comes in as this first or second highest owned wide receiver on the slate too, with all the Hunter Henry and Mike Williams news. So I think Benjamin is just such a clear-cut pivot.
Yep.
Just from an ownership standpoint. I mean,
he's on par with Terry McLaurin in terms of, value, and should see way less ownership. We know this role has slate busting upside. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Couldn't you see something like 134 yards, 2 touchdowns, 4 targets? I don't know.
Four targets seems a little low. I think he saw 3 or 4 last week with both of those guys, right? So I think if you're
4 catches, I meant.
For sure. That sounds about right. One of them going for 40 in the tutty. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yep. Yeah, just not a game to love though. You're not stacking this game.
No, not at all. That's why I'm saying I think game stack elsewhere, and Travis Benjamin is the one piece that you include from this game as a pivot.
Yep. Minnesota, Green Bay. Scott, you were slobbing on Dalvin Cook's knob all week. You playing him this week?
No, there's just like other running backs I like, but like it wouldn't shock me if he went nuclear.
So if you think he's going to lead the NFL in rushing yards,
right,
and he's priced as the RB3 on the slate, doesn't that make him a value?
Yeah, I mean he's again just like a bubble guy. I'm going to go after. I mean, there's running backs I prefer this week in terms of value, but
no, that's fair.
I mean, and if you think Green Bay keeps this competitive, then you have to look at Adam Thielen, who's in a top 2 matchup. Wide receiver ones just obliterate Green Bay. That's what happened last year. They gave up the most schedule adjusted fantasy points to wide receiver ones. Week 1, what happened? Allen Robinson was just getting open at will. And then on the other side of the ball, Devontae Adams, this is probably the cheapest he could be all year. And as a contrarian play, which, you didn't get that luxury last year. But what do we think happens? I don't know. I have no idea.
Does
Rodgers suck?
No.
Oh.
But their O-line had issues. It's clear the offense wasn't fully implemented. I don't know. There's going to be a coming out party.
Yeah,
when is it?
I think there's 3 things in this game. One is Aaron Jones perceived not having the full workload in that backfield. I think you can use that, and I think you can pair that with Green Bay defense as a home defense. The only thing that I don't like about that is just Kirk's passing attempts should be relatively low, but I do think that you get both of those slightly under-owned. And I also think the other thing from this game is that Green Bay is sitting at only -2.5 point home favorite. I think you bet the -2.5 right there and take the hook. I like that actually. I think that's a little ridiculous. I think Minnesota has done well when they're in Green Bay, but I also think Rodgers has missed 2 or maybe 3 of those games. So it totally gets overhyped. I think Green Bay covers the 2.5, and I think you can get Aaron Jones in the defense just as a mini correlation play at relatively low ownership.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because Green Bay is coming off of a bottom stone floor game, and Minnesota is coming off the best game they'll probably have all year.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, not a whole lot to love there. Jacksonville, Houston. I think this is an interesting game. Houston defense fully mispriced on DraftKings.
Yeah.
Big mistake.
Though I will say their defensive line ranked worst among all defensive lines and like the best stat to look at in week 1.
Yeah. I mean, they stink, but I probably would play the Giants defense at home against Gardner Minshew. I mean, it's just like,
and Gardner Minshew, by the way, PFF's 6th highest graded quarterback in week 1. He completed all of his non-dropped passes.
Yeah.
Why shouldn't we go all in on Gardner Minshew?
Because
it's Minshew
naked.
Season.
He works out naked. He's a fucking weirdo.
Does he really?
He is a weirdo.
Yeah.
No, he doesn't. Get out of here.
Dude, look it up.
Well, no way.
All right, I'm looking it up.
Yeah, Gardner Minshew naked workout. What do I Google for that?
He does. It's been talked about all week. I can't believe you guys haven't seen it. He like stretches naked in the locker room, like by himself.
Really?
It's like really weird.
Exercise bands in the locker room, wearing only a jock strap, shades, and a headband. Sometimes naked.
Yes.
What a weirdo.
This just makes me want to lock him, though.
Right?
This only does great things for him.
Look at lunatic quarterbacks in the NFL, like Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson.
Well, that's fair. Well, Minshew will be the next guy to, kiss his child on the lips. So I think, I don't love Houston defense, but I think the price is really, really good. And I think Houston's going to put up points. Jacksonville defense didn't look great. I don't know.
You know what didn't look great was Houston's offensive line.
Yeah, that too.
That looked so bad.
To be fair, I think Tunsil is better than he was week 1. He was there for like 5 days. I don't know.
I think Watson's just prone to the sack too. He did look better.
AJ Boye's out?
Yep. Ooh. And they're starting nose tackle.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. The Jags are just, that team's dying. Scott, is there any play that you love in this game? I don't really like this game very much. I feel like I should.
D.D. Westbrook's going to go low owned. He has a dream matchup. The Texans just cut Aaron Colvin, and Phillip Gaines is there. And if you remember Phillip Gaines, you'd remember that he has no business starting or even playing in the NFL. Third worst of like 300 cornerbacks in fantasy points allowed per route and coverage over the past 3 years. I was on him hardcore last week, but really we should have known Kendall Fuller. That's the tougher matchup.
Well, he shadowed him though. We definitely didn't expect that.
Right.
Are you back to the well?
Yeah, I think so. I don't think he's a great value like he was last week, but I think he has great upside. Remember what Dennison was saying all offseason? He was like, this is the best route runner I've ever been around. Dude, you just came from Minnesota with Adam Thielen, Stephon Diggs. And in the preseason, he was targeted on like 90% of his routes. But it's Minshew, so I don't know what you want to do there.
Yeah. Anyone you like on the Houston side? Not really anyone that I'm stoked about.
No. Although Hopkins has been fine against Jalen Ramsey before.
Yeah, but do you want to pay wide receiver 1 price for it? Hodge?
No, I have such a hard time targeting games that project to run relatively slow. So I think there's other places out there. I mean, Houston has like a good implied team total, but I don't are we just going to see a heavy split between Hyde and Duke again? So I just
right.
No thanks.
Yeah, that was really frustrating. I don't know what to do there. New England, Miami. Sony Michel all in?
No.
You going with Rexy?
I think Rex Burkhead's a fine tournament play. I feel strongly about this, and I understand that it's
the like Miami it's a hard, will cover.
No, but I also that it's a hard case to argue for. But I really love Tom Brady this week. Love.
You don't think they let up? Is that why?
No, I don't know that it matters. In Tom Brady's last 10 double-digit victories against Miami. He averages like 290 yards, 2.8 passing touchdowns. He has Antonio Brown, Josh Gordon, Julian Edelman. This is the worst pass rush in the NFL. This is the worst pass coverage defense in the NFL. He's going to be contrarian. What's their implied point total? Isn't it like 50 points?
33.5. And it went up from its open.
Yeah. So, I mean, could we see a Sony Michel 3-touchdown game? Of course. Tom Brady could still hit value. On FanDuel, I think he's way too cheap. Actually, maybe both sides. He's QB6 on FanDuel, QB5 on DraftKings. He's the 9th most tagged quarterback on FanShare. Dream matchups for Gordon, Edelman. Yeah, I don't know. No one's going to play him, and I'm going to play him, and I'll get burned by Sony Michel, but whatever.
No, I like it, man. He's also his player prop is like 1.5 touchdowns. I think that's not a great line. Should be like 2.5.
Yeah. What's the over set to though?
You mean like the VIG?
Yeah, what's the VIG on it? 1.5 at what? Minus 120?
It was like 120. It's probably gone up.
Yeah. Well, and so I think when you really break that down, you're basically saying he's a minus 250 favorite for the over on half a touchdown and I think that looks great. That's like LaShawn McCoy. What was his name? Marshawn Lynch at home. Like that guy was a minus 300 favorite for a touchdown at home almost every week. And he got there all the time. So I do like that. And just kind of what I've been harping on is this is a game where I do think a ton of plays get ran, actually. This is where I think we could start pushing, 130, 135 plays total in this game. And with White expected to miss this, I actually at $6,200.
By the way, I think that might be fake.
Yeah, that's all I'm saying with him. With the news that we have right now from an unconfirmed source, Sony Michel is absolutely in play for me at $6,200.
Yeah, I get it. I just I hate playing a running back that's not going to catch balls. So do I. But you're talking about an implied team total of 33.5 points, and the only other running back behind him is Rex Burkhead.
Wait, we're talking about Sony?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just avoiding it entirely. Like if Sony Michel beats me, I'm going to let him beat me. He averaged like less than a yard per carry last week. I mean, whatever on that, but it was a legitimate, three-way committee where Rex Burkhead was stealing rushing attempts, stealing it inside the 20s. And he's going to get 0 targets no matter what. So you're just like banking on multiple touchdowns. And like maybe he gets that, like 3 touchdowns, but even then it's just like, I don't know, 18 points and then plus 100 yards rushing. It's just like the process bet. I can't do it. And he's not cheap. And Burkhead stealing carries. So I don't think it's the same thing as last year.
I don't think it is either, unless James White is not at this game because
what is this?
Some unconfirmed source about him missing the game for the birth of one of his children. Like that's it. There's nothing confirmed. The team hasn't said anything. So all I'm saying here is that if James White is not there, I think $6,200 is a fine price for Michel in this game. If this is that 3-headed backfield committee, you shouldn't even be looking at these running backs. But it's different when James White isn't in the picture.
Yeah, I think he's going to play though.
That's all I'm trying to say is if he's not, Sony Michel is in play.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fine argument, even if it is the 3-way. Like I sat and thought about Sony for a while, but yeah, I don't think so. What about the Miami side? Do you think anyone's interesting there? I gave Kenyon Drake a really hard look. I think he's fine on one of the sites. I don't remember which one he's cheaper on.
4,300 on DK.
Yeah, so I mean, like he saw 0 targets last week. If they used him as they should use him, he's a smash value.
I don't know. Let me go look at his game log. I feel like
he had 3. He had 3 targets, but he only played 27 snaps. He had 2 catches.
Yeah, but he got like all the volume, didn't he?
It was weird.
None of them got volume. That was the problem.
Oh, okay, maybe that's what it was.
Yeah. Balaj had 5 carries, 1 target.
Negative rushing yards, right?
Yeah, neither of them did anything.
Yeah. That's such a backfield situation. That's just like.
Oh. But I mean, like pass catching backs, smashed against New England last year. Drake, I think he's a good pass catching back. Maybe he's too risky, but the price point.
You want to play a guy from there, it's Devontae Parker. He had 7 targets.
Against Stephon Gilmore? No, it's not. It's maybe Preston Williams. I like Albert Wilson, but he's
dead.
Is he dead?
Yeah, I think so.
It's over, man. Pack it up.
I know. Dude, he played 6 snaps and saw 5 opportunities on those snaps, and then he gets hurt. It was like the most Albert Wilson thing ever.
Yep. All right. Buffalo Giants. I think Josh Allen's going to be pretty popular. I think he's a good play. Stacked with John Brown.
Yep.
Don't really want to touch the Bills' backfield. Singletary played a ton of snaps, but he didn't get the ball a lot.
He's their scat back, and I think Buffalo wins.
Well, Josh Allen is just like not a good quarterback for the running back. He just really doesn't help his running backs. That's him. He runs rather than throwing them the ball. And then on the Giants side, is there anyone we want other than Evan Ingram? I can't pay Barkley's price when Kamara is so much cheaper.
Well, yeah, and that's why I think Kamara is going to be the chalk. So I think when you are paying up, Barkley is an easy pivot.
I think he's the number 1 pivot. So Kamara, best pay up running back. Some people arguing Zeke. I'd rather go Saquon, who I think might be contrarian. And I don't know that he should ever be contrarian.
Yep, that's fair.
I'm going to have to go double check. I felt like when I was watching this game, Singletary started to get more usage as the game got competitive or as they got up. I don't remember what it was. I think that you're like really trying to read between the lines with that kind of stuff. And I wouldn't mind seeing another sample or two, but if you want to be ahead of it,
you're right though. Yeah. He played a ton in the second half when they were when it turned into a quote unquote shootout.
Yeah. And I think that's when he saw his targets, right?
Well, he's the pass catching back. So you're going to want him on the field instead of Gore in passing situations.
Yeah.
I mean, at his price point, he's actually a fine play.
I know. It's just the whole coaches should coach the way that we want them to, not the way that they will. And coaches tend to just give Frank Gore the football when they shouldn't. I
mean, he had 4 carries and he totaled at least 18 yards on every single one of those carries. And then Frank Gore, 18 yards, 10 carries. It's so stupid.
It's so dumb. It's so frustrating. It's so frustrating to sit at my computer and say, why don't you just play that guy? This is so easy. Just give him
play your good players.
I think you can play Buffalo defense, but I don't love playing road defenses, but I think they're
let's talk quarterbacks for real though, Johnny. Rank Josh Allen. Is he one?
Josh, on this slate?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think for value, him and Carr are pretty close. But I'd probably lean Allen for the legs, but it's close.
He's the QB3 over his last 7 games. Yeah. He's QB 16 price on DraftKings, and he smashes bad defenses. That's what he did last year. Ridiculously smashes bad defense. What are the Giants' bottom 2 defense in the NFL? He's going to smash.
Yeah, and he had a horrible game last week. I mean, he threw 2 picks, he had 2 fumbles, and he scored 20 DraftKings points.
What about John Brown?
Yeah, great play.
You don't need a stack with Josh Allen, but I want a stack.
What sucks for Brown, though, is that when he's on the outside, he will see shadow coverage.
Yeah, but that didn't matter last week. Janoris Jenkins looked garbage. Giants gave up the most fantasy points to wide receivers, the most fantasy points to receivers on deep passes. Amari Cooper, was unstoppable, open on 90% of his routes. Or should we fear Janoris? I don't know. I don't think so.
Janoris is such a weird one because he has like really good games and then he has really, really bad games.
Right.
Yeah. Giant side for me, it's pretty much like I like Ingram a lot, and then maybe Barkley as a contrarian play, but people want to play Latimer and that kind of stuff. I'm just gonna pass on that. Hodge, you on Allen or Carr?
Why you make me pick between those two? I think, I don't know, dude, flip the coin. The matchup for Carr is far superior, especially the game environment. But I think Josh Allen has been, Scott said it, like he's ranked so well as a quarterback over his, what did you say, Scott, last 6 games?
7 games. Yeah.
7 games. Yeah. So I just think that's such a large enough sample size to play Josh Allen at $5,300 over Derek Carr in a primo game environment. But the Kansas City, I don't know why don't we just always build around Kansas City? It has been that way for week after week after week after week. And here I am stacking the damn Jaguars and like I should have had more Mahomes. I should have had the other side of the ball. And I just think I should do that again. I just don't know why I don't build around that team 16 weeks.
We'll definitely talk about that for sure.
Sorry. So to answer your question, I guess Josh Allen. But I like flip the coin, man.
Yep. Yeah. Seattle, Pittsburgh. I think this is a get right spot for Pittsburgh. Everyone's talking about how much they suck, and appears everyone forgot that Big Ben sucks on the road. Comes back home, sleeping in his own bed, banging his own wife. No hookers this weekend. Bet a bunch of money on Pittsburgh -3.5 this morning, and I'm in a pick'em pool or like a bet pool with some friends, and you bet your units. Bet all my units on Pittsburgh this weekend, the all-in first week. This is a spot where you want to play Big Ben with Juju, like fire it up. Seattle sucked last week. What do you guys think?
I think this is such an easy spot to get back onto Pittsburgh. You have a 25.5 point implied team total. You have the home road splits, like you said, are just out of control. He's $5,800. That's such an easy price point to work around. You have a Juju Smith-Schuster who I think, definitely got rolled on with New England in that first game. And this is such a bounce back spot for Juju. I think he's going to be a little higher owned than most people might expect, just based on the way that people are talking. But if I'm paying up for a wide receiver, I'm paying for Juju.
Scott, what do you think?
Yeah, man. I mean, Juju only sort of flopped last week, but he should have. It was New England, which sells out to stop your opposing team's top option. He's still in the slot, which is where you want him. Who do you pay up for, Johnny? Who's your pay up for wide receiver? Is it Juju? If you feel so confidently in Pittsburgh, it should be.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's sort of deciding between playing Juju and playing Michael Thomas.
Right.
Yeah, I think Watkins is a good play too. So those are sort of the three that I like at the top.
Yeah, so Watkins comes in a little cheaper, and Amari is pretty much the same price. I think we'll get to Amari.
I may end up on Juju though. I like him a lot.
It's just such a good spot for.
What about Lockett?
Hard pass.
He's a near lock button play for me.
So when a player comes out and says that double teams are hard, that's such a bad quote for me when it comes to it's a bit narrative based, but at the same time, it's that shouldn't be an issue for you.
So, I mean, fine if this were any other opponent, but what does Pittsburgh do against slot wide receivers? Elite slot wide receivers like Keenan Allen, they just leave fucking linebackers on them. This is the dream smash matchup. they gave up the third most fantasy points per game to slot wide receivers last year. In week 1, they gave up 55 fantasy points to slot wide receivers. It's like 3 times the league average. I think he just goes nuclear in a get right spot.
Can't wait for you to text me like
right
2:30 on Sunday, and you're like, "Is Tyler Lockett playing? I just woke up."
Hedge, maybe a slight hedge with DK Metcalf. Maybe like a slight 8% hedge.
Oh man, I had so much Tyler Lockett week 1. What a fucking brutal.
Yeah, me too.
He catches that touchdown, and it like didn't even matter. He still only scored like 10 points. So I don't know. Connor Carson. It feels like a game where there's 2 like really strong running back plays, and nobody wants either of them.
Well said. But I also kind of don't really want either of them. but like it's hard to articulate why. They're both, they're both slight values.
Yeah.
I like both.
Hodge?
I think James Conner is if I'm picking one out of these 2 from a raw projection standpoint, he projects pretty well. I think that I said this, I do think that it was slightly concerning, the usage between him and Jalen. And I know that Jalen got a handful of that when they were being blown out. But my only argument there is that if Jalen is getting used in those situations when they're being blown out, I'm not like Juju and Ben and starters, they were still all on the field. So I don't understand the Jalen saw more snaps because they were getting blown out. Like walk my extremely football uneducated mind through that. Like
they got blown out.
Yeah, but what I don't understand. So if they're getting blown out, why is Jalen on the field?
Because they use him only in like passing situations. So
they're not using James Conner this year in passing situations?
Probably not when they're down by 21.
But why? I don't like because they still need to see what they have in Jalen Samuels?
No, but James Conner got hurt at the end of last season. They've lost Le'Veon Bell 2 seasons in a row before that.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I might be overthinking this. I do think if we project James Conner for his normal workload, he's probably a top 4 or 5 back on this slate. And then I think when you factor in salary and value, he shoots up to like a top 3 back if he sees his expected workload or what we projected him to start the season with from an expected snap share.
Yeah, I'm going to have a Steeler slot this week for sure. Big Ben, Juju, James Conner, Steelers defense.
Very easy.
We used to have those like win milli makers. Now they're back home. They're all price depressed.
Mm-hmm.
Bringing it back. Remember the good old days, Scott?
Yep.
But
I mean, so I'm with you. I think this is like the best sneaky shootout game stack game this week, just in terms of ownership and everything. But at the same time, like look at the over under of Los Angeles, New Orleans.
Right. Yeah.
And like that's still like based on fan share, like not owned enough.
Yeah. No, let's hurry up and get to some better games.
Yeah.
All right. Indy, Tennessee. I don't want.
Let's get to some better games.
Yeah.
No, I'm trying to blow through this one.
Okay.
I don't really want any Colts. I don't really want any Titans. You can make the argument for Derrick Henry, but I'm probably not going to do it. Maybe Delaney Walker, but I think there's other better tight end plays, and that's it for me. Delaney's
the 4th best tight end value on DraftKings, and that's the extent of my analysis for this game.
Yep. Hodge?
Am I incorrect, Scott, that both of these defenses are probably slightly underrated? I think they're actually both relatively good defenses.
Yeah, so I'll say that. Indy had some key injuries week 1, right, Johnny?
Yeah.
Who did they lose?
I blows my mind. Their stud linebacker, but I'm not sure what his status is.
Okay.
Darius Jackson. Yeah, there you
go.
Next
Maybe
yeah.
No,
I mean,
it's not Darius Jackson. I can't remember his name.
The guy who was a rookie last year.
Yeah,
Leonard. Yeah.
That's egregious that we all fucked up that guy's name. He's fucking good.
I know he's so good.
But yeah, I mean, Tennessee's defensive line were ridiculous last week. Baker Mayfield was sacked 3 times over his last 7 games, sacked 5 times. But whatever.
Yep. Carry on.
It's just defense. Yeah.
All right. Dallas, Washington. I think people are going to play Terry McLaurin.
I like it.
One thing to remember is that Byron Jones was not a full-time player last week. He likely will be getting up to speed soon. If he is a full-time player this week and he shadows Terry McLaurin, then RIP Terry McLaurin.
You think the rookie would get shadow covered? Maybe.
He's their wide receiver 1. He just coming off a 101 game. Yeah.
Yep.
And then I think Vernon Davis is the better play, and Chris Thompson. The Dallas scheme just allows yardage to short type guys. It's why we wanted to play Evan Ingram last week. So Vernon Davis is cheap again. No one's even talking about him. He's 3,200 on DraftKings, coming off 7 targets. I like him. I like Chris Thompson. Like the Dallas side, but I just don't like. I like players in this game, but I don't love this game because it's a divisional game and Washington sucks.
But it is the first divisional game. Don't those tend to perform a little bit better from pace of play and points? So just for whatever that's worth. Also, Trey Quinn, wide receiver 1 on this team. We'll talk about it in 6 weeks.
Michael Gallup on Quentin Dunbar is a fine play on one of the sites wherever he's cheaper. Not amazing play. I do like Terry McLaurin a lot. I guess keep an eye out on that cornerback matchup, but I do think he's way too cheap.
Fair enough.
Travis Benjamin, though, I mean, we liked him, and he's going to be way lower owned.
Yeah.
All right. Kansas City, Oakland. Play, as Al Zeidenfeld says, you play all the dudes.
Yeah. I think you do. And I think that it's super easy just to use Kansas City as your 4 and your 3, and you just run it back with Josh Jacobs and Tyrell Williams. And if you want to, obviously, Waller. I think Waller is just going to be insanely high owned. But if you're doing 150, you should absolutely be exposed to him. This is such an easy game to build around. It's so easy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, Waller, Tyrell, Ryan Grant, Derek Carr, Jacobs, Richard, and then Mecole Hardman is the guy not to forget about.
Mecole, I think, and I'm only just addressing what people have been telling me. I think Josh Jacobs is an every down back, and I think he's involved in the pass game. People are talking about, you're going to regret lock buttoning Josh Jacobs when Jalen Richard starts, and this game gets out of hands and they're playing from behind. And I don't think that's the case at all. I think if you go look back, Proctor, you sent this to me, but it was 10 routes run on 24 of Derek Carr's dropbacks. Josh Jacobs, I looked it up over at the Quant Edge on their game splits apps, and he was in for 4 of the 5 third downs, and saw 4 rush attempts on those third downs for Oakland. He's playing every single snap in this game. Well, not every single, but you get my point. Jalen Richard is not somebody that people need to worry about at all, in my honest opinion. Now, one of you, feel free to prove me wrong.
I think me and Johnny had this exact conversation where Johnny was right. I talked about Josh Jacobs, all right, he's an amazing play. So he had 24 touches against, the smash running back defense that ranked worst in yards per carry last year, 3rd worst in fantasy points per game. Said all these things. They're 8-point underdogs, and he ran a route on only 37% of Carr's dropbacks. And Johnny was just like, look at his price. It doesn't matter. And he's right. He's too cheap by 1,600.
Yeah. Even if he's only getting half of the passing work,
right?
That's still valuable.
And I think he gets probably more than half of the passing work. I'm not willing to buy into Jalen Richard is a thing.
Yeah. Like if Richard comes in when they're down by 20, I mean, how early are they going to be down by 20?
Right.
Everyone wanted to play Nick Chubb last year against the Chiefs, and the Browns got like blown out, but Chubb still had like 20 carries in the first half. So,
but yeah, so I built a model this year that just kind of looks at what a player's salary should be. Darren Waller, 1,700 too cheap. Josh Jacobs, 1,200 too cheap. Tyrell Williams, somewhere around there, like easiest, best wide receiver play of the week. Just like ridiculous. Derek Carr is probably the number 2 quarterback play on DraftKings. Love all of them. Sammy Watkins is mispriced. He's a low end wide receiver 1. Yeah. Why shouldn't we be treating him just as we would Tyreek Hill? Now there's more targets, more highly concentrated. Mecole Hardman, Travis Kelce, week winning upside for sure.
So if you can only play 2 Raiders, which 2?
Jacobs and Williams.
I'd go Williams and Waller.
And I think that makes total sense. Waller's like an out of control value. I just think Waller's carries a higher ownership, and I'm always looking to just separate there.
Fair enough.
Actually, I don't know if I'm right, because what's the difference between Waller and Hawkinson? Is it as drastic as the difference between Jacobs and whoever the number 2 running back value is? I don't know.
Stuff.
How mispriced do you think Watkins is? Like 900?
That might be a little high, but he is mispriced. I think Johnny's right though. Johnny had it. What, Juju, Thomas, Watkins? I think I'd go.
Yeah.
Thomas, Juju, Watkins.
Yeah.
Maybe Watkins, Juju. I don't know, but yeah, somewhere around there.
Yeah. Fair enough. Chicago, Denver. I like Allen Robinson, and calling it a day.
How good is it?
I like Cortland Sutton and calling it a day. You want to sell me on Allen Robinson?
Saw 13 targets.
That's never happening again. And
and
they're Mitch Trubisky targets. So they're really that's really like 6 targets.
You want to play John Brown? They're John Allen targets or Josh Allen targets.
I mean, his deep targets are fine.
Okay. So the last game that Allen Robinson played before this season, he saw 13 targets. Coaching staff spent the entire offseason talking about how they are getting this more involved, that Allen Robinson...
They spent the entire offseason saying, like, we're not going to have 100-yard receivers. Like, it's going to be very rare for that to happen.
No, that's not what they said. They spent the whole offseason talking about how the Mitch Allen Robinson connection is, like, so real. And then they walk out week 1 and he gets 13 targets. No one wants to play
the coaches said that, or the beats said that?
The coaches. Nagy said it.
Here's what Nagy said.
I watched every press conference from this guy over the preseason.
All right. Here's what he said. I don't know who's going to have the big game. It depends on what the defense is going to give us. Everybody's live on every play. We're never going to have one guy, I don't think, receiver-wise, who you see every week who has 9 catches for 140 yards and 2 touchdowns. That's just not us. And that's true. They're a run-first offense that the game got away from them. They went a little pass-heavy. I love Allen Robinson. He was a top value for me all year, but he is not a bet-on-volume guy. And with Trubisky under center, he's not a bet-on-efficiency guy. He's good, but I don't see double-digit targets happening, and I'm not playing him. But maybe I'm wrong.
He doesn't.
I hope I'm wrong.
He doesn't have to get double-digit targets. He's 6,100. You want to play Tyler Lockett? He got 2 targets.
Yeah, I do.
Mean, the point is that Allen Robinson has a ceiling of 13 targets. He's done it 2 games in a row.
He's playing Denver.
Okay, they suck. They really suck.
You want to give me some points on John Brown versus Allen Robinson, with John Brown being almost $1,000 cheaper, I think, on DK? Do a little friendly bet.
I mean, they're similar. They're similar plays, and they're like run and gun QBs with their top wide receiver.
I know, but then I guess all I'm trying to say is I think that $1,000 you should probably take that savings.
Yeah, I agree.
I do. But just to Johnny's point, I think Allen Robinson, even though as inefficient or as poor as those Trubisky targets might be, Allen Robinson does help make up for them. I think he generates great separation and is a great ball catcher. I could be wrong. That's like, there's nothing quantitative behind that. So you might have some data to.
Yeah. If Mitch was slightly better last week, Josh or Allen Robinson would have like 200 yards and everyone would be like, just like foaming at the mouth for him.
That's Scott's point though, is Mitch will probably never be slightly better.
Yeah. And I think they go massively run heavy this week. And I do think they try and get the other receivers more involved. Anthony Miller, I don't know what was happening with him.
He's done, dude. He's not even the slot wide receiver anymore. It's Tariq Cohen.
Are you sure that wasn't an injury thing?
It's not an injury thing. He's fine.
Wow. That's crazy. I don't know. I was holding out hope it was just an injury thing and we see more work this week. But yeah, here's Allen Robinson's problem. Lockett is $100 more expensive. Cooper Kupp is $100 cheaper. Josh Gordon is $300 cheaper.
Let's
talk. Westbrook $700 cheaper.
No, I get that. That's fine. I'm not
Cortland
saying
Sutton, by the way, consider him not a top play.
Wide receiver one, baby. Wide receiver one the next 15 weeks.
All right. Let's talk about the best game of the slate. That is going to be less owned than the second best game of the slate. The Saints go to face the Rams, where if you didn't stack the Saints-Rams games last year, you went broke.
Yeah.
What do you guys think? Alvin Kamara, just give me all the Alvin Kamara this week.
Yep.
And it's super easy to get to Kamara as well with guys like John Brown, Josh Allen, Waller, Josh Jacobs. If there's so much value on this slate, where I think once again, week after week after week, you look at teams that are shipping high dollar tournaments, they have workhorse backs in them. You don't really see people getting cute. You see running backs who are touching the ball 20 times a game. And Kamara is just, you've said it a handful of times, Scott, how valuable those targets truly are.
Yeah, Kamara is the guy I want to pay up for. He saw better than expected usage in week one, where his snap share jumped, where his carry share jumped. I know Johnny wanted to victory lap the stupid beats who.
Oh no! There was that beat writer who said Alvin Kamara is going to play 90% of the snaps. He's like a true. It's like his argument for it was that it's his time.
Yeah.
Okay, dude.
Yeah. So it was nonsense, but at the same time, you did see a jump in snap share, carry share.
Right.
Also, he smashes the Rams. He just murders them. Historically, Michael Thomas, Elliot Chris said it amazingly, where he was just like, listen, in game, the Saints are really easy to figure out. You have to push them to get them to use Michael Thomas, and then they will. In games, New Orleans opponents drop 20 or more points. Thomas averages 13 targets, 130 yards per game. What happened last week? The Texans dropped 28 points. What happens this week? Vegas thinks the Rams scored 28 points. Thomas is probably going to go off. He's my wide receiver one this week.
Yep. Jared Goff's at home, guys.
Yeah, baby. Who's the Rams wide receiver that you're really trying to hone in on, though?
By my model, all three are values. Kupp gets PJ Williams, which is the best matchup. Cooks has historically done really well against the Saints. Revenge game narrative. Also, Saints give up a lot of deep fantasy points. I'm avoiding all three. I just never get the right one, so fuck it.
They're awesome, though, for game stacks. You want to do Goff, 2 wide receivers, Kamara, and Michael Thomas. Just rotate them through.
Yep.
Yeah. Love this game. Love this game.
Any interest in using the Rams in a game stack too, with Breeze on the road and probably having a decent amount of pass attempts?
Yeah.
I just think they're
definitely
not
in play.
Like mispriced, but they're also not expensive.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. You could do a full Ram slot.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think this is just an easy game. You know who's getting the ball. Any other thoughts? I think we pretty much covered the
you said it great. This game is easy. You know who's getting the ball. Taysom Hill.
God, man, Taysom Hill rushing touchdown once cost me like the cash line last year. When I had Breeze. God, I hate that guy. Any other last minute thoughts other than Taysom Hill, the most tilting fucking player in the NFL?
I don't think so.
All right. Well, that's it for week 2. Scott, thanks for breaking up your sleep schedule to come hang out with us. And we'll definitely try and do this again this year. And that's it for us, guys. Peace.
All right.